A lot of people are writing off Tyranitar EX as a bad card, but I think I have two different deck ideas that might change your mind. Hey, Nick from 9Card TCG, and today we're going to be going to the Pokegear app so we can take a look at two. Yes, two. I was going to do, I count them, 1, 2, but then we're done counting. We're going to be looking at two different Tyranitar EX decks. One of them is going to be like an aggro burst. Just get your Tyranitar, start swinging as hard as you can. The other is going to be a much more defensive Tyranitar build that I'm really excited for, though I haven't really tested either of them that much. This is all just ideas. This is all just for fun. So we'll go ahead and see. But I want to know what you think of these deck lists in the comments. Tell me which one you prefer, which one you think is going to do better, which one you might want to try. But let's go ahead and get straight to the deck list. So here we are, Pokegear app. This is the aggressive version. We have Tyranitar EX, 340 health, lightning type Pokemon, which is really cool because we have weakness against things like Palkia and Lugia. Really cool. Mountain Bash is our first attack, does 120 damage for just a single fighting energy, but we do have to discard the top two cards of our deck. Then we also have Thor's Rampage for 2 fighting energies, does 150 damage. But if any of our bench Pokemon have any damage counters on it, this attack does 100 more. So we're hitting for 250 with just 2 fighting energies. That's really, really solid. Now, we do evolve for stage 2, so we evolve from Larvitar, which evolves into Pupitar, which goes into the Tyranitar. But we really don't care about the Pupitar too much because we have rare candies, which lets us skip the stage 1 evolution entirely. Really cool. So we bench the Larvitar, attach an energy. Then next turn, we play Rare Candy, evolve it to the Tyranitar, and then we can even, if we want to, attach an energy to a different Pokemon because we can hit with Mountain Bash, and then the following turn attach an energy to the Tyranitar and start going Thor's Rampage. And then next thing you know, we have a second Tyranitar built up immediately. It's really cool. But we can accelerate these energies being put into play even faster with Koraidon EX with the Dino Cry ability. Once during your turn, you may attach up to 2 basic fighting energies from your discard pile to your basic fighting Pokemon in any way you want. If you use this ability, your turn ends. So that is worth noting. Now, one of the things about this is we can go ahead and use something like Squawk abilities. If it's your first turn, you can use this ability and then discard your entire hand and draw 6 cards. And you can't use more than 1 Squawk and Seize in a turn. Why do we want to use this? Well, we have things like Squawk and Seize, we have Ultra Ball, we have, some like things like Trekking Shoes. We want to get these fighting energies into the discard pile as fast as possible, at least 2 of them, so we can go ahead and use Dino Cry and start powering up our Pokemon. So the ideal turn 1 would be something like we have a Larvitar in the active, or maybe we have a Koraidon in the active, something like that. I would probably say Larvitar, but I guess it really depends on what you're playing against. Larvitar active, Larvitar on the bench, Koraidon on the bench. We Ultra Ball away 2 fighting energies, and then we attach 1 from hand. So we attach 1 to, say, the active Larvitar. Then we can go ahead and use Dino Cry, attach those 2 energies we discarded with the Ultra Ball, 1 to the active Larvitar and 1 to the benched Larvitar. Then the following turn, we can evolve the Larvitars, attach a second fighting energy to the other Larvitar or to our Koraidon, and now we're ready to go. But we have the Squawk ability to help make it happen. Now, we have to get damage counters on our benched Pokemon, so Tyranitar's Thor's Rampage, or Thor's Rampage, does even more damage. We can do that with the Gengar from Lost Origin. It has the Netherworld Gate ability. Once per turn, if this Pokemon is in your discard pile, you may put it directly onto your bench, and if you do, put 3 damage counters on this Pokemon. So we can go ahead, use something like Ultra Ball to discard the Gengar, use Squawk and Seize to discard the Gengar. We can use Trekking Shoes. Look at the top card of your deck. You may put that card into your hand. If you don't, discard that card and draw another one. So if we play Trekking Shoes, we look at the Gengar, we say, oh, that's instantly going into the discard pile, and then we just get to draw another card. So that's really cool. Just a little bit of sequencing. If you Trekking Shoes, get out of here. If you Trekking Shoes into another Trekking Shoes, you always keep it. Always keep it and then play the Trekking Shoes because you'll see an extra couple of cards. So then the rest of the deck, we have things like Gutsy Pickaxe, which reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an energy card, if it's a fighting energy specifically, you may attach it to one of your benched Pokemon. If it's not a fighting energy, you put it into your hand. So a couple of things here. Koraidon only lets us use this ability to our benched fighting or to our fighting Pokemon in play. Basic fighting Pokemon. So it has to be onto a Larvitar, which is fine, or it could be onto itself, right? Which is fine, because really we only want to use Dino Cry at the very beginning of the game. So when we use Dino Cry, we probably have those Larvitars. But for the later turns, when we evolve into either a Pupitar or into a Tyranitar, we have the Gutsy Pickaxe. Now, interestingly enough, we can Gutsy Pickaxe onto something like a bench Squawk ability. So we have a pivot option for the next turn. We also have Motive. I don't know how that happened. We also have Motivate for 20 damage, attach up to 2 basic energies from your discard pile to one of your bench Pokemon. So that's another way we can go ahead and power up our Tyranitar out of nowhere if we really need to. Though 160 health on a 2 prize Pokemon probably will get us KO'd, except maybe not in like a Lost Zone matchup or something like that. So there is use for Squawk ability in this deck outside of just that first turn draw. But really the idea is get Tyranitar into play as quickly as possible, power it up as fast as possible with Koraidon, Gutsy Pickaxe, and attaching for turn. Use the Gengar. We also have Gate Draw Bog. When you either player puts a basic Pokemon from their hand to their bench, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So it is worth noting if you play Gate Draw Bog and then play Squawk ability from your hand, now that Pokemon has damage counters on it, we don't care about the Gengars anymore. And now we can go ahead and use Thor's Rampage to hit for the full 250. Also worth noting that if our opponent puts a little bit of damage on themselves with something like Gate Draw Bog, now we're hitting for slightly better numbers. Probably still not going to KO because we're hitting for 250. They put 2 damage counters on themselves. That's 270. We're still just a little bit shy, so maybe like something like Flying Entry Hawlucha. We can go ahead and boss up something else. Play the Flying Entry Hawlucha, put 1 damage counter on that Pokemon that has 270. Now they get KO'd because they're 280. And then we can still attack with the Tyranitar. Something is worth considering. So remember, this is just a very early build. You may want to consider something like a Clara in this build, just to go ahead and be able to recover a Tyranitar if you discard them. With Mountain Bash, you discard some extra energies, or you just need energy to attach for turn. Clara might be a decent option, but we do also have Defiance Band, which if our opponent has more prize cards remaining than us, our attacks do 30 more damage to our opponent's active. That means we're hitting now 280 with Tyranitar if our opponent has fewer prize cards remaining. So if they take an early KO on this Larvitar, now all of a sudden our Tyranitar is going to come back and hit for 280 damage if we have a Pokemon with damage counters on the bench, which we could do very, very easily between Gate Draw Bog and Gengar. So really cool synergy in this deck. And then we have Choice Belt, which we just always do 30 more damage to Pokemon V, which is great because Arceus has 280. Lugia is weak to lightning, so we don't care about that. Palkia is weak to lightning, so we don't care about that. There's really not many other Pokemon V other than Arceus, but the random Aerodactyl Vs of the world, the random... You go against a Tinglu, and sometimes they run like Lucario V-Star. Those things have 270 health. So anything like that, now we're hitting for 280 just base hitting with the Tyranitar's Thor's Rampage. So we can pretty easily get those damage numbers up there. And if we are going against an opposing Tyranitar or Charizard EX or Gardevoir EX, something like that has a lot of health, we just Mountain Bash and then Thor's Rampage and we're fine. So not really that big a deal. Or we could just Thor's Rampage twice if we can. It's the better attack because we don't have to discard cards from the top of our deck. Unless we need to discard cards from the top of our deck to thin it out a little bit, then it's not a bad thing. So you get the idea. So this is deck number 1. Deck number 2 is similar. It still uses the Tyranitar line, obviously. It still has, Nest Ball and Ultra Ball and Rare Candies. Still has the Gutsy Pickaxe. But now our focus is locking things down. Now we have the Aerodactyl V and V-Star. Ancient Star is our V-Star power most of the time, or I should say some of the time. Until this Pokemon leaves play, it gains the ability that has the effect of your opponent's Pokemon V have no abilities, which is really cool. That means we can turn off opposing Luminions, Starburst, we turn off Star Portal, we turn off whatever. Our opponent's Pokemon have no abilities. Genesect doesn't have an ability anymore. I don't know, there's a bunch of stuff. We also have Path to the Peak to turn off all abilities for Rule Box Pokemon, that is. So no Radiant Greninja, no whatever, right? Just Roblox Pokemon. There's a bunch of stuff. I already named a few. I'm not going to continue to name them, but Path to the Peak is how we're going to turn off things like Gardevoir. It's how we're going to turn off things like Chien-Pao, all that kind of stuff. We also have a Klefki, as long as this Pokemon's in the active spot. Basic Pokemon in play have no abilities, with the exception of Mischievous Lock. So we can also turn off other Radiant Pokemon at the beginning of the game with something like Klefki, which is really cool. There's just a bunch of stuff that we can do with this. Lost Dive is not a terrible attack for 240, although we do have to lost in the top 2 cards of our top 3 cards of our deck. 3 fighting energies is kind of a lot without the double turbo energy or Arceus to power it up. So it's probably not going to be something you're attacking with all the time. But really, we just want an Ancient Star. So we go ahead, we hit the Ancient Star, and then we can use a switch or an escape rope to go into something like the Tyranitar, and then just start mountain bashing. We have Cheryl, so we can heal all damage from our Tyranitar EX, and then we only have 1 or 2 energies on it anyway, so if we discard 1 energy, we can just attach another one, and we're fine. We heal all damage, we got the Pal Pad to use it again. We have something like Avery in this list to draw 3 cards, and if we draw any cards like this, our opponent discards their bench until they have 3 Pokemon remaining. So a lot of decks want to go kind of wide, they want to have full benches. Chien-Pao wants to have a full bench, Gardevoir wants a full bench, Lugia typically has a full bench, even though you don't always want it. Lost Zone decks have full benches. So the only thing that might not is something like Arceus decks. But then we have Aerodactyl V-Star and Path to the Peak to really deal with the Arceus. If we're in a matchup like a Gardevoir matchup where you're not going to use Pokemon V abilities or anything like that. We don't have a lot of those. We do have Forest Seal Stone as a backup V-Star power. And Star Alchemy lets us just search a deck for any card we want. We can go ahead and attach that to a benched Aerodactyl V, or probably a Lumineon V, which lets us get a supporter. So we can go ahead, use something like Lumineon to find a supporter. We can go ahead and get like an Avery, get our opponent's bench down to 3, and then we attach a Forest Seal Stone to the Lumineon, search a deck for any card we want. Could be like a Path to the Peak, and now we just turn off all their abilities, and we don't really need the Aerodactyl V or V-Star in play. We can just continue to attack with the Tyranitar. You have that Klefki, like I said, for early game. The Klefki can be switched for Spiritomb. Is something that I've been playing with. I haven't really tried these too much, so maybe you go 1 or 2 Spiritombs, or you go like 1 Spiritomb and a Heavy Ball. That's probably a pretty good option, and you don't have to worry about having so many switch outs, which you do need to have right now. You need at least a couple to be able to get the Klefki out of the active, so you can start attacking with your Tyranitar, unless it gets KO'd, but that's kind of the idea. The deck does the same stuff. You have a couple of copies of Iono and Judge with the Path. You really just try to slow them down, grind out this game, just chip away at them, Mountain Bash, Thor's Hammer, or Thor's Rampage, whatever it is, and there you go. That's how this deck likes to work. I think this build has more potential in the current meta right now than this one. I think this is more fun, but if you're trying to play Tyranitar competitively or want to use it at your locals, this is probably a build that I would try first. But let me know your thoughts on them. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, found it informative. If you did, like, subscribe, comment, all kind of stuff tells YouTube this is a good channel. Other people should watch it. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. I want to give a special shout out to the YouTube members Black Wins, Mike the Highest, Fernando Ortiz, Chin Pokemon, and Eric N. Thank you all so much for your support. It really means a lot to me. And if you want to become a channel member, you can go ahead and click the channel member button somewhere at the bottom of the page. I'm not really sure. I haven't done it myself.